Hello and welcome back to this week's Real Estate Producer Show. I'm Kara and I'm here with Neil Sherman from Best Homes Title and Nicole and Mike from Hall Financial. Hello and welcome everyone.
Thank you for having me today.
Hi, Neil.
Of course.
Hello.
Hi, Neil.
And although you are so humble about it, I know that you know all things real estate pretty much. Well, to me, I feel like you know everything there is to know, not only about what's happening now, but where the market is heading as well. So I'd love to just kind of get things started with asking, what's your background with real estate? What's your relationship? And what are the many hats that you wear?
Sure. So I'm a proud real estate attorney. I got my degree from Michigan State University, Detroit College of Law in the early aughts. I manage a title company called Best Homes Title Agency. We are a 12 office agency spread all over Michigan, as well as an office in Chicago. And I manage that operation. And in addition to that, we have a sister company, Schneiderman and Sherman, which is a law firm. Mm-hmm. We specialize in representing mortgage lenders, servicers with any issues they have related to residential loans in the state of Michigan.
Okay, nice. So not busy at all.
Not busy at all.
Not busy at all.
So I know, Neil, one of the things you specialize in is kind of forecasting what's going to happen in the market and what we're expecting. So what do you see? I know the foreclosures are going to begin starting in January, and so what do you foresee is going to start happening in 2022?
Sure. I think for all of us, it's complicated to forecast exactly where things are going to go. The market has been so incredibly unusual as a result of the pandemic and moratoriums that were put in place by the federal government, by independent servicers, by local municipalities. So now as we begin to come out of that, it's going to make for some very interesting times. So January will be the end of the moratorium on foreclosure actions here in the state of Michigan. I do not anticipate seeing an absolute flood of foreclosure volume. One of the good things that happened with the stabilization of our economy is that the value of homes went up. So there's a significant amount of equity in homes. And as a result of that, instead of seeing straight foreclosure activity, there's a high likelihood that some of the sellers that have been sidelined through the pandemic, for whatever reason that they decided to wait, might hit the market. And thus, we could see a pretty robust traditional real estate market in 2022.
So when you talk about that, you mean there are going to be like some foreclosure starts that maybe won't finish? Can you explain to people what that means and what the difference between a start and
versus finish?
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
So when someone is delinquent on their loan, typically, the goal that all servicers have is to get people reperforming. Nobody's interested in completing a foreclosure, but sometimes an action is required to sort of get the gears moving. Mm-hmm. And when there's a significant amount of equity in properties, that provides an opportunity for homeowners to find a different avenue out of the foreclosure process. So one avenue out of it could simply be a loan modification with their servicer, but another avenue is to say, look, this is the right time for me to move on from this property, and that would become a new asset in our traditional marketplace.
And what's a normal year look like? But before the pandemic, say 2018, how many foreclosures would we see in Michigan in a year like that, and how many would we see across the country?
Sure. So the numbers have not been normal for a very long time. And if we get into numbers, 2019 saw a default rate of approximately 1.9% across the nation. And that is lower than the nationwide average typically would be. And that's because lending standards have been pretty tight for a number of years. In the state of Michigan, I'd be guesstimating if I told you how many foreclosures we would normally see. The cycle of foreclosure volume over the last, let's call it 15 years, the last norm was probably around 2005. And then we saw the Great Recession, which saw a skyrocketing volume of foreclosures nationwide and including Michigan. And we saw it taper off from 2012 all the way to 19. If I was guessing what we might see going into next year, I think that seeing volume similar to 2019 is probably what we're looking at.
Okay.
Question. So the real estate agent has the glamorous job of, showing houses, writing the offer. They get really excited with the client. They come to Hall Financial because they need a mortgage, the
Right.
client. And then title. Tell us why title is so important to the client.
It's a great question. So it's really twofold. And, we recognize that in the transaction, when transactions are happening, and they're happening with Hall Financial and their partner realtor, who's that other guy or gal in the room? Mm-hmm. And that's your title representative. So there's two components to title. There's the escrow side and the title side. Title is insurance. So it's ensuring that you have a fee simple interest in your property and that your encumbrances are everything that you believe your encumbrances to be. And by encumbrances, I mean that you have a loan on that property, maybe there's an easement or right of way on that property, but you know about all of that. What title insurance protects the homeowner from is somebody else making a claim against that property, right? So very, very important part of the real estate transaction. The other part, the escrow part, is really what happens with the keys and the money. And I love to sort of talk to my children about this. And I'm like, well, imagine that somebody's bringing the keys and somebody's bringing the money, and they have to give that to somebody so that that person can look at everything, make sure it's the right keys, make sure it's the right money, and then make that exchange. It's obviously a lot more complicated than that. We deal with proration of taxes and all these different aspects of the escrow process. But at the end of the day, that's really what we're doing. We're the in-between representing the buyer or the seller as it relates to the transaction.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that. And then also, second part to that question is, with Hall Financial, we have all these philosophies that we live and breathe by.
Right.
And one of them is, we want to make sure that we are the obvious choice. We want clients to call us first, call Hall first. What are any philosophy that Best Homes Title has? Because we use Best Homes Title, and we have a great partnership with you. So what is one of your philosophies?
Well, I appreciate you asking that as well. So we have a number. How we see Best Homes Title is, if you remember back in the day, I'll age myself a little bit, when we would buy computers, you would look to see whether or not it had Intel inside. And we started to know this bum, 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 this noise about Intel, the processor. I don't know anything about computers, but for some reason, I was convinced by Intel that I needed Intel inside my computer. Well, at Best Homes Title, we want to power the real estate transaction. We want to be the processor inside the computer. And so we want to work with the best, like Hall Financial and our agent partners, to provide the best service and be in that background seat to help you complete your transactions.
Yeah, absolutely. And to Nicole's point too, with the buying and selling of the home, it's kind of more, it gets a little bit more shine. And any client that is going and putting not only their time and energy into it, but also possibly the biggest debt of their lives into it, then they need to be working with a great mortgage company and title company as well. It doesn't just end there. It's actually, many would argue that it's the most important pieces of the transaction as well.
It's a complicated part of the transaction. And in reality, we work with seasoned agents. And we work with new agents, and we are able to teach them about parts of the transaction that they might not know anything about. And there's a big difference between listing properties or originating loans and completing that final transaction. And that's where we come in. And we recognize that we're a problem solver. That's what we do. We solve problems for all of the partners that are part of this transaction and try and make it go as smoothly as possible. Also recognizing that part of being a good partner is when things are problematic, when things fall off the rails, helping everybody get back on the rails.
Yeah, that's very true.
All right, Neil, I'm going to ask you to predict the future one more time here.
Another prediction.
Yeah.
Right now, you go to a closing. You just talked about the keys and the money, and everyone has to be there. And you need a blue pen to sign. And we're going into the year 2022. How much longer are people going to need to physically show up and go to a closing before we move to the digital era? And
Wow, it's a great question. And I really think that the process associated with digital closings, which is our future, and it's not as simple as us just hopping on computers or hopping on iPhones and doing it. That whole process was sped up because of the pandemic. And we had special rules during the pandemic that allowed us to use tools like a Zoom to complete a closing. That was only for temporary because of the situation we were in. But remote online notarization, or RON closings, are part of our future. And as we look at the young consumer, and we have a very large young consumer base that is going to start seeking out mortgages and buying homes, they are looking for a different experience than mom and dad. They are looking for a digital experience. And our goal is to work with our partners to provide that experience. So when you ask the when, I think we're a few years off from seeing this be fully adopted. But I would anticipate in the coming years, we will see more and more borrowers utilizing digital tools to close.
Awesome. Okay, keep your crystal ball out.
Crystal ball is out.
For the individuals that are asking, is the next Great Recession going to happen? When is it going to happen? What do you have to say from your point of view?
Well, I think that it's good to be asking the question always. We've been a very hot market, both real estate and the stock market, for many, many months. And so people start to wonder, when will the shoe drop? I think that the fact that we're seeing rising inflation is a factor, and it's something that we're going to have to keep our eye on going into next year. I do think we will see some impact in the default world because we've had such a long moratorium. We're still waiting to see what happens with the variants that have been announced. So I go into 2022 cautiously optimistic that this will be a very strong year. I do believe it'll be a very strong year for the real estate market, but I think that things could be impacted by those other factors.
And between inflation and, the equity that people already have in their homes, it seems like it would be easy to get out of a situation that you might need to foreclose.
Very well. It really could be. But the other thing that we don't know, because none of us were there was a reason that they had the Roaring 20s. People wanted to party, after the prior decade and the issues that went on then. Where do we go from here? I don't think we know yet. But as a real estate community, I anticipate that we will be incredibly busy, and that there'll be a lot of opportunity both for Hall Financial and its agent partners.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We definitely appreciate all of your insight, and great insight at that as well. So although he doesn't technically have a crystal ball, we do appreciate all your insight onto the future and into 22 and everything. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mike and Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, everybody.
And of course.
I appreciate it very much, and just want to say happy holidays to you and the entire team, and what a pleasure it is getting to partner with Hall Financial every day.
And back at you with Best Home Titles. I think that having a strong relationship between the title company and the mortgage company as well is huge, and I know that we are such fans of Best Homes Title and appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, of course, and as always, like and subscribe. Thank you.